will begin. I would wait because, Jewish time people are going to be wandering in. The problem is that the general has a flight at 11. We have to leave here at 9 sharp. So we want to leave time in case you have questions. Thank you, David. So we have with us a person who is one of the generation that founded the state, in the sense that he was a fighter pilot. He flew 400 missions. He was Israeli Consul General to LA. He was involved in Israeli business, which we'll go into in a moment. But he was of that generation that sacrificed everything for the state and is the reason why we have a state. He started as a fighter pilot, training on Spitfires. He flew squadron. He was the leader of a squadron of Mysteers in 1956. He was leader of a squadron of Mirages in 1967. He was then in Phantoms in the War of Attrition. He shot down 7 enemy planes. He was one of Israel's top pilots and became ultimately a brigadier general and head of Israel's Air Force Academy. After 27 years in the Israeli Air Force, he became Israel Consul General in LA for 3 years. He later was in business. He was the chairman of the board of Dan Hotels. He was the chairman of the board of IAI, Israel Aircraft Industry. He has an MA from Harvard and hundreds of other allocates and awards and lifetime achievements. But let me stop speaking and let him speak. So please welcome IDF Brigadier General Ran Ronen Pecker.
Thank you, David, very much. Very happy to be here today. I would like to start by express my thanks to David, to his family, and Tanya, his wife, who welcomed me so warmly and nicely. And the rabbi is not here yet. Met with him yesterday. Young, impressive, active, and this is wonderful to be here. I feel at home. A little bit about myself. I was born in Moshav, in Kfar Vitkin, located halfway between Tel Aviv and Haifa, Netanya and Hadera. My father came from Ukraine, from Kiev. When he was 15, he escaped and traveled all over the area, and finally he arrived to Israel in 1919, so when he was 16. No money, no food, no work. He paved roads in the north, met my mother, Red Air Sabra. She was born in Israel, and they got married, and they were the founders of the largest moshav in Israel, Kfar Vitkin, located, as told you, next between Hadera and Netanya. I was born there, raised there, and immediately after high school I volunteered to the Israeli Air Force for 2 years and stayed for 27 years. Could not leave my pilot, my fighters, my colleagues. Unfortunately, our generation, we were forced to fight 5 wars for the existence of the state of Israel. 56, 67, 73, and the true attrition war, the war, after the 6-Day War and the Yom Kippur War. I accumulated 400 operational missions all over the Middle East. Out of them were reconnaissance and intelligence missions, which are very complicated. I was lucky and happened to shut down 7 enemy airplanes Syrian, Jordanians, and Egyptians. During these 5 wars, I lost many of my friends next to me. And yes, I saw them were killed with the feeling that I wasn't better. I was only lucky. Because the very same missile could hit me, but somebody wanted me to stay alive. I happened to command 3 squadrons, all of them during war, Mystère, Phantom, and Mirages. Then I was the flying school commander in Israel, and I commanded the largest base, it's called Tel Nof, with 7 squadrons during the 73 war, the attrition war. We are really a special nation. I can tell you many stories, but I tell you about one family, our family, Sturman family. My aunt, Atara Sturman, lost in war, not from sickness, in war, her husband, her son, and her 2 grandsons. One lady, it's Hannah. During those wars, we were 5 fighter pilots of the very same family. 4 of them were killed, and the only one survived. 2 of them were killed under my command. I went to my uncle to say that they lost their sons. And this is difficult, and I know that this is very unique, special. There are many families like in Israel, but when I see it, I have many friends all over the world and tell them the story. This is different. This is Israel. Now, in my small family, I have 3 children, 9 grandchildren, and 1 grand. It's unbelievable. And we are, last Friday, we sat for a dinner around the table. We were 5 pilots. Myself, my son-in-law is also a general. We flew together Phantom and F-15s. His son, my grandson, is a F-16 pilot. Her fiancée is going to get married. She's a pilot. And my granddaughter, her husband, she was a captain in the Air Force, and her husband is a major and second command of the squadron. So we were 5. There are several families like that in Israel. I've flown with the French Air Force for a year. I was attending the Command and Staff College with the American Marines in Quantico, Virginia. And made with them a deal. They came from Vietnam War, very upset. I came from the 6-day war, very happy. And so they wanted very much to know and to talk. I said, no problem, let's make a deal. I will go with you to any bases you would like, any squadrons, but I would like to fly every and each airplane that we don't have in Israel. And then I flew. I used to come to the base. They said, okay, the pilots are waiting, give your lecture. I said, no way, let's fly, and then we'll talk. And it was unbelievable, and I'm familiar with them. The Americans are open and friendly, good fighter pilots. I landed aboard the carriers. I did with them everything. It was amazing a full 1 year. After 27 years, I jumped. I was, of course, 27 years with the Air Force, 4 years with the Foreign Ministry. Then I jumped to the business arena. I am very happy. But I felt that I would like to contribute something still to the state of Israel. And discuss it with myself, 27 years with the security, 4 years with the foreign ministry, to education, which is, this is the most, talking about future, you know, you should talk about education. And then instead to talk, I decided to do something and went to South Jaffa. Maybe several of you have been there, South Jaffa, and collect from the street, I collect 12 guys and walked with them, you know, for full 4 years, from 12 to actually from 14 to 18, and it was a miracle. All those 12 were recruited. Several of them are officers, and this is really amazing. And then I asked myself, why 12? Why not 4,012? I can tell you right now we closed the 8,000, and I do have, and I recruited, and do have 134 volunteers. Each of them adopt 15 guys and girls and boys, and he is and she is a godfather of them from 14 to 18, from the 9th grade up to the IDF. And the stories are really amazing. I'm not competing with the formal education system. And I am, then people ask, what do you do with them? So I'm concentrating, you know, with them, how to be a better citizen of Israel, about friendship, about values, about love to the state of Israel. And I emphasize the importance of them to be soldiers and a good soldiers. They are the guests of the Chief of Staff with all over. They are the guests of the Air Force commander in the wing parades. I sent every year, you know, 50 of them to the concentration camps in Germany and Poland. And this is amazing from where they come. I give them, you know, for 4 days before they go to study the Holocaust, to understand the Holocaust, etc. And then when they come there, it's amazing, to Auschwitz, to other places, and they change. This is very important. My project that everyone in Israel knows, this we crossed about 5 months ago, 20 years of, you know, of running this project. We crossed the 8,000 kids that went through our program, and we are very proud about it. The unique actually about our project that everything is in you know, volunteering basis. No one get a penny ever. And this is something else. Everything is from your pocket. You are a godfather of those 15 girls and boys, and you are the godfather from 14 to 18 to the army. and this is very important. When I was a consul general here in Los Angeles, by the way, responsible for the 7 western states, including, of course, yourself, which is visited here, enjoyed it very much, Arizona. So I emphasized the federation. They called me and asked me, you know, Ron, we see that you are a friend of all the millionaires, the multimillionaires, etc. You know, ask them why they don't contribute to the UGA. And in jeans and sneakers during the weekend when I was invited to Malibu houses and to the swimming pools in Beverly Hills, I asked them, listen guys, why don't you contribute to the UGA? They told me about all of them, with no exception, no way. I said, why? They say because each of every and each dollar that I contribute, 70% of it goes to first class flying and parties in New York, etc., etc., etc. Here our project is 100%, you know, goes to the kids. And this is the reason that people do like all over the world, in Israel, in the States. I have a group in, of course, supporters in Miami, in Los Angeles, in New York, in other places. And when I met, I visited Los Angeles and flew back to Israel, sat next to this man, Tanya, and they sat next to me. She slept and he talked. And we talked, and then, you know, we opened to each other, and I told him about this project. He got excited, and here we are. Here we are. I came especially here to meet with you and to tell you about this project. I have more to say, but we would like to show you 3 very short, you know, DVDs, and then I will summarize and continue. Thank you. The lights.
Where's the lights?
They're in the back on both sides. I'll go to this side, Benny.
מלחמת יום הכיפורים, האבדות, הניסיון להגיב במהלומה האווירית, והידיעות המטוסלת שלא שבו הביתה בשלום, תחושת התסכול כשהשמיים אוטמים מהאבדות, כשהשמיים פתאום הם גבול. והתוכניות שלנו מתנפצות על מציאות מאיימת שחש כל אחד באופן אישי. המדינה בסכנה, מדברים על חורבן בית שלישי. והפנים הרציניות של ראש הממשלה וקולה הלא בוטח.
פתחו צבאות מצרים וסוריה בהתקפה נגד ישראל.
ועד הטנקים הריקים וריח הסל, אותו הריח, וזעקות השבר של משפחה ועוד אחת, וילד והבא אחריו, שמקבלים בשורת איוב, שאבא לא שב מהקרב. מלחמת יום הכיפורים, ההפתעה, הבלימה, ואחריה רוח צה"ל, רוח חיל האוויר, התאוששות, חשיבה מהירה, הראש שפועל מתוך המצב השביר, אותו ראש ולב ונשמה, אותה הרוח והחשיבה שמרימים את השמיים שנפלו והופכים אותם לשמיים של תקווה. שמיים של עוצמה ששורשיה ברוח המפקדים והחייל הבודד, מעוצמת כוח הרצון ולוחם ממנו שאינו מפחד, ממערך הבקרה האווירית שנותנת תמונת מצב עדכנית, ומערך ההחזקה שממש שוכב על גדר התיל כדי שמטוסים ימריאו שוב גם אם הם חבוטים ופגועים, ומערך המודיעין שמתעשת והחופשים והרופאים, פיקוח הטיסה, אנשי הבינוי שתחזקו מסלולים, תפילת האש של הכטב"ם, הכבאים, ומערך ההדרכה שהופך למבצעי בתוך שעות, ומוטל המערכה עם חיילי חיל האוויר כולו. חיל שהוא משפחה, משפחה שאינה מוותרת, שחושקת שפתיים, ונלחמת בחירוף נפש על היבשה והשמיים. חיל האוויר שמתקיף ויוזם בזמן ובמקום הנכון. חיל האוויר שהופך את ההפתעה לגודל הניצחון. מלחמת יום הכיפורים, 40 שנה אחרי, התפתחות החיל שהיא תמיד חיובית, כיפת ברזל. האדיר, עידן אחר של עוצמה אווירית, של מסקנות מאז שהפכו ליחידות עילית וכוח של איכות. הכטב"ם, יחידות החילוץ, המעטים שיכולים מול הכמות. זרוע האוויר והחלל, חיל שבכל העולם הוא שם דבר. אבל גם חיל שמושך את שפתיו כשנזכר במחיר הנורא ששילמו לוחמיו להשיב לישראל את העוצמה והגאווה כדי שישוב העם ויביט למעלה אל שמיים של תקווה. הטייס אבי ברבר שב ממשימת הפצצה ברמת הגולן. הוא חש שהסכנה כבר מאחוריו, ואז נפגע מטוס הפנטום והתרסק, לא לפני שנטש צוות האוויר את המטוס הבוער וצנח ממש לידי הסורים.
הפחד הכי גדול זה שאתה שומע את הצעקות של מישהו שהוא בחקירה. אתה מדמיין שהוא על סף שחיטה. ומה שקורה, אני גם יודע מתוך דיבורים עם החברים, שנוצרת סוג של התכווצות כזאת. וואו, מה הם עושים לו? אם הם לא עושים ככה, תורי עוד מעט יגיע, או אחרי צהריים, בחקירות של אחרי צהריים, או למחרת, יכול להיות שהם הגדירו את הלחץ, צעקות של קולות עמוקים, מלאי לך כאלה מסיגריות, כזה, רק מהכל אתה מתכווץ. לא מדבר כבר על מה שנלווה לו. לכאב אם מתרגלים לו. יודעים שזה יעבור. פסיכולוגית, אימנתי את עצמי, שזה הולך להיות ארוך מאוד, אל תבנה ציפיות. החוכמה בשבי זה את הדברים שהם באמת חשובים, נניח לחיל האוויר ולביטחון המדינה, שעשויים להשפיע על המערכה הנוכחית, תנסו כל מאמץ לא לדעת אותה. ביני לבין עצמי אמרתי שסצנריו כזה חוזר על עצמו עוד פעם, אני יכול לעמוד בו.
מה הדבר הראשון שחשבת לעשות כשתחזור?
לעשות ילד ולטוס.
ואז עצרה מדינת ישראל את נשימתה, כש8 חודשים אחרי המלחמה נחתו השבויים בארץ.
נוחתים בבן גוריון, אני אפילו לא גומר לרדת את המדרגות של הסולם, אני קופץ מהאמצע, כי אני רואה את סימה.
יומיים אחרי השיבה הביתה, מחכה בבסיס לאבי, הפתעה.
מפקד הבסיס אומר לי, ברבר, שתה, ויסקי כזה, כוס מלאה. ולא רנה, תראה, רנה, אני 54 קילו, איך אני אשתה? ברבר, שתה. לא יודע איך יצא לי הרבה כמה, אז לא רנה, אני שותה 2 כוסות, אם אני טס ביום ראשון. אמר לי, עשינו דיל. הוא לקח פנטום, אזור 800, תעשה מה שאתה רוצה, מגובה נמוך עד 50,000. תלכו אותי לבני פלד, הוא שואל אותי, תגיד, אתה רוצה לחזור למבצעי? איך אתה מרגיש את זה? אמרתי לו, אני מאוד רוצה. אמר לי, ואם זה יקרה עוד פעם? אמרתי לו, אם זה אותו סצנריו, אני עומד בו.
אבי חוזר לטוס.
אני בסך הכל רציתי לחזור לטוס, וטק, נהייתי מפקד 201.
9 שנים אחר כך סוגר אבי מעגל במלחמת שלום הגליל, כאשר הוא תוקף ומשמיד את סוללות הטילים הסוריות בלבנון.
עשינו את זה, דפקנו את הטילים הסורים, בלי אף אבדה, חיינו את זה, זה היה החיים שלנו.
כשהוא מתבקש לתת ציון על תפקוד חיל האוויר במלחמה, הוא אומר,
תראה, עובר כיתה, אבל צריך לעשות הרבה שיעורי בית וחוברות בקיץ בשביל להשלים את החומר.
ועוד חלום קטן שהתגשם מאז ימי הכלא. משפחת ברבר חובקת 5 ילדים.
No, not yet. The third one. Good.
בית ספר מקים קבוצות צהלה, עמדים על הארץ. מהר מאוד. אותנו לצהלה. אנחנו מניחים של המגל, מיבנה, המגל, יבנה.
שיר מטבעון, ואנחנו ממש בקבוצת להיות כאן.
ומי הם המתנדבות והמתנדבים? זה פשוט, זה כל כך מרגש, אי אפשר בכלל להאמין איך הם מכל קצוות הארץ באים ומוכנים לתת את המקסימום. הארגון בנוי צפון, מרכז ודרום, הם קוראים לזה מנהלי מחוזות, זה אלופי פיקוד, 134 כאלו, הכל בהתנדבות. לכל מתנדב 15 חניכים שהם רצים איתם 4 שנים והם אחראים עליהם בכל. אנחנו גאים בפרויקט הזה, נהנים מהעשייה ומהתרומה העצומה שיש. ערב טוב.
לפני 3 שנים בתיכון עירוני ז' ביפו התקבצו נערים אז בכיתה ט' וחבורה שפגשה את הטייס רן פקר, תת-אלוף במילואים. זה הלך בהתחלה מאוד מאוד קשה, היו לי בעיות מנהיגות קשות מאוד שלא היו לי במקומות אחרים שהייתי, כי הם לא הכירו את עצמם ולא הכירו את ליבם החשדניים, לקח לי כחצי שנה לשבות את ליבם. קיבלתי נערים ואני רוצה היום כמעט דברים, ואני חושב שהם מנהיגים ויש להם את הכלים לנתח בתופעות או אפילו בעיות שמתחתו בהם בצורה יותר גדולה.
רן פקר שתה לפני כ8 שנים תריסר סדרנים צעירים בתוך הממה שהוא עצמו הקים. הוא לא בחר עצים בפרי וגם לא בדק את הטעם. הוא רק התווה את הכיוון ואת המינרלים על פי מינון. לאורך 4 שנים הצמחה מוביל דרך 3 שנות עורלה אל 4 שנת ההילולים. דעו כי עלינו מופקד המחר. השרביט ניתנה בידינו, אך אל נשכח היום להישמע ולפקד להורינו ומורינו על מנת שבעתיד נפקד בעצמנו.
קוראים לי אשרת סריסה, אנחנו מנשם, תיכון מקיף נשם בחיפה, ולפני 7.5 שבועיים חזרנו מהמסע מפולין, שבאמת חבל על הזמן, עברנו במסע כזה מרתק וקשה, וצריכים להיות באדם באמת חזק בשביל לעבור אותו. השתחררתי מהצבא, התחתנתי, יש לי ילדה מקסימה, קוראים לה מוריני, בת 10 חודשים. צהלה בשבילי זה דבר שמציל חיים.
צהלה מתקשר באופן ישיר לתפקיד שלי, שצהלה פתח לי אופקים חדשים, פתח לי מגבלות יצרן חדשות, וככה עם שאיפה לשאוף יותר גבוה הגעתי לאן שהגעתי.
אני 16 שנים בצהלה, ואני חונכת 2 קבוצות כיום במגזר הדרוזי. בשבילי צהלה זו התגשמות הציונות שלי הלכה למעשה.
צהלה בשבילי פרויקט מציל חיים. כלוחמת במשמר הגבול קיבלתי 8 תעודות הצטיינות.
צהלה בשבילי 2 מילים, זה לב ונשמה.
צהלה בשבילי זה בית, זה מקום שנותנים לך להרגיש בו שייך.
בשבילי צהלה זה קודם כל אהבה לנוער, לחניכים ולבוגרים, וכמובן גם למתנדבים הנפלאים שיש לנו.
ערב טוב לכל גיבורי צה"ל, אבל דעו לכם שממרחקים מעבר לאוקיינוס בלוס אנג'לס אנחנו תומכים בכם, מעריכים את כל העבודה שאתם עושים בהנהגתו של רן פקר, במיוחד כל המתנדבים וכל הצעירים שמצטרפים לתוכנית של צה"ל שהיא עבודת קודש. כל הכבוד לכם, בהצלחה ותהנו מהערב. You want to say something to them?
I should understand what he says by now, but I don't. So I would like to say congratulations to Ron Pecker and to all of you, to Helen Rose. We're very proud to support you. We hope you continue doing the good work you're doing. We look forward to coming and meeting with you soon. We hope you enjoy your evening.
Well, I should add one thing. I forgot to tell you, this is Sharon Saban and I'm Chaim Saban. Salamat.
Their officers, you saw there a Ethiopian guy, a officer, a captain, and I met with him. He arrived from Ethiopia when he was 3, and then I adopted him in Salah later. I saw his eyes and helped him and sent him to the Technion. And now he is serving, now he's a major in the base that I commanded till north, and doing well. And this is an amazing to be a major. We arrived from Ethiopia, and now all his future in front of him. The second one, with uniform was Tzachi. Tzachi was in my first group from South Jaffa. I cannot talk about his family, but I recruited him. Now when he got married and talked, he was a major, now he's a lieutenant colonel, married to a major, and they have a daughter. And during his wedding, his father is a big one from South Jaffa. I never saw such a thing. During the chuppah, he said, okay, stop. Ron, come here. Tzachi is now 28, 14 years I, 14 years you. That's what he said in front of all the unbelievable. Another one is Sarit. I can tell you 8,000 stories, but I have a flight to Los Angeles, so I won't. Sarit, you know, today the IDF is very tough. There is a computer, so you put in the computer of IDF all their achievements, and the computer say yes or no. No, you cannot record. Yes. And she got the expected no, but I knew her. And I do have an agreement, check-in agreement with the chief of staff that if all those that I know personally, and I'm ready to sign recommendation, not to say yes and then disappear. Sign the document. They were recruited. She was recruited, she took, and she served in a very elite unit, and she does have 8 special awards. I believe that in this room there are several with awards, but no one with 8. She does have 8. And the last one, I have so many stories. It's Mary, she was there. Mary, unfortunately, was born to her mother walked in the street. Her father was drunk. Her grandpa adopted her and grew her up in Jaffa. When he died, she was alone. Then I convinced the army to recruit her when she was 17. This is very difficult. Usually it's 18, but I explained and she was recruited to the Air Force. The Air Force sent her to a camp next to Haifa, and she was again in the streets in Haifa. I was very unhappy and sent her to the south. This is in Mitzpe Ramon, a big camp of the Air Force closed. And then after a few months, I got the call from the squadron commander there, Ran, you know Mary. He said, of course I know. She is a corporal, she is excellent, and I'm going to send her to a officer course. This is saving life. I can tell you hundreds of stories, but you saw there how they looked, and they really, with these 4 years, this is great. Since everything is on voluntary basis, each kid cost us for the full 4 years only $500. And I'd like to thank you in advance on the goodwill. We get support from all over, but this is not when all our connections are long-term connections. When they come to Israel, they call, they see the kids, etc. And that's a very interesting and unique, really, operation. Another thing that all the contributions are deductible, which means it goes when somebody would like to contribute. There is here a form, and he gives the check to Devin, and while there are all the checks, he sent it to New York to the PEF. Only the PEF, no one can give me because we would like it to be deductible. The PEF made all the paperwork and get back to every contributor and with the deductible forms, etc., and then send to our bank the money. This works very, very well. I'd like to, if you do have any question, I'll be delighted. If not, there are some other few stories that we can tell you, but I give David, of course, the opportunity.
Well, first let's ask if there's any questions from the audience.
If there are any questions, please.
When we contribute, do we get any emails or mailings that how the kids are doing or updates?
We keep you posted, we keep you advice, yes. We do have reports that we send to all our contributors, and we keep them involved because this is not one shot and disappear. This is a corporation. This is all the, the groups that work with us. They get those reports, they get the picture. When they come to Israel, they are invited to the wind parades. If they would like, there are some that would like to meet with the group, to meet with the kids, etc. Yes, this is a long-term kind of cooperation. We are not going to looking for, one. This is a really a cooperation. Yes. Yeah.
The kids are all Jewish, right?
I don't think.
Are all the children Jewish?
Are all the children Jewish?
Jewish.
Jewish.
Are all the children
Are the children?
הם כולם יהודים, הילדים?
Yes, of course. No, of course.
Well, no, you have Druzis.
you have
You have
some-
Druzim.
Yeah.
Druzim. No, יש גם דרוזים.
Druzi, of course. We are, yes, we penetrated to the Druze in the north, and we do there a good job. Actually, even though it's not so easy because of the culture, etc., sometimes, we have some difficulties, but yes, we really penetrated, in advance to the Druze and to the Ethiopian. We even give them sometimes priorities,
But
they,
the Druze, they're not Jewish, are they?
So
No,
they serve.
No, but they serve in
They
the
serve
army.
in the
Oh, that was my question.
Yeah,
They
they
serve in the army.
Anyone eligible to serve in the army.
There's
they are
Arab,
eligible.
there's Arab Israelis that serve in the army. In fact, there was a young woman who had a big award for her service.
Because I thought Arabs weren't allowed to serve in the
No,
army.
they do serve. They do serve.
Oh, Arabs serve in the army?
Not all, some.
No, some, but
yeah. And the bottom line is that we are looking, for example, when we start in a new place, I go to the principal of the school, or I'm going to, there to the mayor and sit with them and ask, where do you need help? What are the problems? We are not going to those that they don't need us. They do have the parents, they do have money, they do have everything. We are looking for kids that we can contribute to them. And this is the name of the game, please.
Is there a curriculum that you follow that's written that we could look at? Or is this, how do you approach the mentoring of the children?
Does every madrich do his own thing, or do they have a set curriculum that they follow?
Yeah, it's a good question. Every instructor gets from us, we have a book, but this is only a recommendation. Because, we give them, this is, everybody can create. It depends who are the kids. Whether this is girls and boys, whether they from Hedera or from downtown Jaffa, totally different. And so we give, this is the reason that our volunteers, none of them left, because they complete a period of 4 years and they continue for another 4 years and another 4 years. I am already 21 years, but I have guys and boys that they are 18 and 16, and it's a lot of time and money and care, and they know their family, etc. This is the name of the game of this project. Yeah.
Will you talk for just a minute about your experience in the Yom Kippur War? Was that the Yom Kippur War?
Well, he has a lot of experience, but
More on the,
you talked to me today about, he has many interesting battles that he was in, many dogfights. He's a famous pilot in Israel. You told me about a very interesting story about this Jordanian pilot. Maybe that would be a good one to tell, so they can get a personal idea of what it's like to be in a dogfight.
How they?
The Jordanian.
Okay. This is a extremely unique story. It was during the attrition war, and we were scrambled. Two Mirages, I was the squadron commander, and we had a dogfight against 8 hunters, Jordanians, hunters who attacked our paratroops, on the ground. The British hunter is better than the French Mirage in these conditions because it does have 4 30mm cannon, it turns better, etc. So when I arrived to this area that they attacked, we started only 2 Mirage against 8 hunters, then another 2 Mirages from a squadron arrived, and it was a very tight up, low level dogfight of 8 Jordanian hunters and 4 Mirages. We know very well the Syrian and the Egyptian. We do like a lot the Syrian because the Syrian, even you shut down 1, 2, 3, they kept fighting, and we like it very much because they stay and then we can shut them down. The Egyptian, it's totally different. Once you shut down one and you see a big ball of fire in the air, all the others run away, and then we follow them till their airfields. We never fought against the Jordanians, and we didn't think about it during the fight. It was the first fight of the dogfight of the Israeli Air Force against them. But later on, we really came up with the conclusion that they got the Jordanian are the only one who got their aviation, training in the RAF, in the Royal British Air Force, totally different. We saw it in the first fight. So we fought for 6 minutes. Usually a dogfight is 2-3 minutes, but every time I was behind one of them, he broke at the time, and it was very tough, low-level dogfight of 12 airplanes. And then after 6 minutes, I saw, wow, we didn't shot any. And then I decided to elect one of them and to tell whatever they can shoot at me, I am going to shut him down. And I reached his 6 o'clock, and he saw me, and he started to maneuver very toughly. And then we pulled together. That's me, that's him, very close. I look at him, he look at me, and the nose was up, and the speed was reduced, and it's called a stall. When the speed, each airplane does have a different speed for a stall that the airplane falls like a stone. So the hunter speed stall is lower, and here he made a big mistake. Instead to stay for another 3 seconds, he broke first. And I reached his 6 o'clock, and it was 6 minutes in the air, and then he elected one of the canyons, goes towards east, towards Jordan. I never ever saw such a pilot fly so low. it's 2-3 meters, unbelievable, inside this canyon. And I was behind him 250 meters, but I couldn't get another meter or two down to put my sight gun on him for 2.5 minutes. Then it was a very small hill there. Then he was forced to pull a little bit. Then I got him, and within 1 second of pushing the trigger, this is 21 bullets. I really thought the hunter in front of me. It takes three-quarter of second till and he ejected. But when he pulled, it takes 3/4 of second till the canopy should go, and then another 3/4 of second till the ejection seat go out. And in this 1.5 seconds, his under his airplane turned 90 degrees. So he ejected to the wall of the canyon and got killed. I pulled and said, I've just shut down an excellent pilot. When I landed, I called my intelligence officer and told him, let me know who was he, and he told me his name is Mufak Salti. He was an excellent cadet in the RAF. He got married to a British lady. They do live in Amman, and he is a squadron commander in Mafak. Okay. Then later, it was very, very strange that King Hussein, the father, named the base on his name. This is unusual. Never. So we understood that it was really something else. And then later on, we got through the diplomatic channels, we got a request from the wife of Mufak Salti. This squadron commander that I shut down, that she would like to meet with the Israeli pilot who succeeded to shut down her husband. So it was through the diplomatic channels, of course, politely, we said no. It's okay. And then later on, a few years ago actually, one of my friends, General Yitzhak Segev, is a paratrooper, came to me and said, Ron, listen, there is something strange. What's strange? He said, okay, Mohammed Shia was a general in the Jordanian Air Force. He's now the advisor of Hassan, the brother of the king, Hussein. Is going to make his first visit to Israel. And he told me that I was assigned to be his host. I called him, he told me, and asked him, what would you like to see? Nazareth, whatever, you would like to see the Knesset, Jerusalem? He said, nothing. I would like to meet Ran Pecker. My name was Ran Pecker at the time, then he changed my name to Ran Monet. I would like to meet with Ran. Would you like to meet? You say, why not? To cut a long story short, Friday evening, the home of General Segev, who hosted him, a very nice dinner, and he invited several journalists, etc. It was, and we got together very well, and we talked with ants, etc. He was quite a guy. And then I found out that he was number 6 at the 8 hunters that we fought against. And he was number 6, and then he became a general and deputy commander of Jordanian Air Force, and he never forgot this fight. And he wanted, and so we talked and left, and it was a wonderful dinner. And then after dinner we went to the living room there, as the Israeli usually did, for a cup of coffee and cake. And then one of the wise guys, the journalists there, say, oh, eventually, finally, we will listen and learn what happened in Samoa fight. This is the fight, you know, the 15 years before. And I told him, leave it, why should we now? So, no, we would like. So I asked her, okay, who would you like to start? Say, no way, you will start. Then I described the fight really in a very nice way, like that. At the end of my, actually debriefing, he became red. And news officers said it was unfair dogfight. You were outnumbered us. We were 2, and they were 8. And said, and the mirage is much better, etc. And we destroyed the whole evening. He got up and left. Okay, tomorrow, the next day, Saturday morning, I got up, called the Hilton Hotel, told I would like the room of the Jordanian guest. Then, how are you? He said, okay. What are you doing? Nothing. I said, okay. At noon, exactly noon, wait for me, casually dressed, at the, at the lobby of the Hilton. Don't take your guards. Let's go and have lunch together. I picked him up, go to a nice restaurant on the beach, and I told the owner of the restaurant, he said, my friend, I am coming with a Muslim guest. They don't drink, but put a bottle of vodka in the middle of the table. He drank like a fish. I didn't, because I wanted to be sober. And we became friends. To cut a long story short, I was in his house in Jordan, in Amman, and met with his family, etc. But they don't forget this fight, and then the Israeli Air Force succeeded to shut down their best fighter. This is the story. I believe that.
Well, you can tell that General Ronen has an interesting life, is an understatement, and he has many interesting stories. I just want to say, we sat next to each other on a plane by chance, and when he told me the stories, I was very interested. But even more interesting to me was the project of Tzahala, because here is a guy that by all rights could be on the beach with a margarita, and no one would fault him. Right? He's done a lot for his country, and he decided to put his effort into this, and he puts a great deal of energy into it. On top of that, besides my respect for him for that and other reasons, this project to me, I'm always trying to help Israel in any way I can. Those of you who know me know this is the case. And I had never found such a perfect and direct way to help Israel, and in particular the IDF. Because what he's doing is 2 great things. One, he's giving these kids a future. If you go in Israel and people say to you, what did you do in the army? And you say, I wasn't recruited. And just so you understand, there's a lot of people who are not recruited because they're not at a level that you can do anything with them. But once you don't get recruited, you have no future because you're not going to get any decent job. So they got 4 years in this program, then 4 years in the army. They've got 8 years now of mentoring, and they make them into people that the society is going to benefit from. That was the word I was going to say. I wasn't sure everyone would know what it is. That's exactly the word comes to mind. To mentions. Mention, or however it is in the book. Then the other thing that I liked very much is he's created 8,000 new soldiers that wouldn't otherwise be for the IDF. Not only soldiers, but in many cases good soldiers and officers. So in a very real way, by helping this project, I feel I'm doing something very real for people who need it in Israel and very real for the IDF. And so I decided to help. And I told him that Phoenix is not as big a community as LA, but it's a good community and a warm community. And we had a number of events around town, and I would encourage all of you who are so inclined to contribute to a very good cause. If you would like to, there are these sheets around. If you didn't get it, I have more. And if you have a checkbook, give me the check now. If not, send it to me in the next week, because I have to gather them together and send them and list them and send them to this organization in New York, this third-party organization that keeps everything, square. One more thing is, as the general said, this is a completely voluntary organization. So any money you give goes directly to these kids, because the 134 volunteers he's referring to in Israel, who are all former officers, I assume. All of them are former officers and high officers. They do this on a voluntary basis. If they take the kids in their car, they pay for the gas. So everything they're doing, when Ram flew over here, he flew on his own dime. So everything, he paid for his hotel. I mean, everything is, they're doing this out of the goodness of their hearts, out of altruism, and every penny you give is not going to some bureaucracy that has an interest in perpetuating itself monetarily, but directly to what I think is a very pure and good cause. So we have to go, but I just want to thank Ran for coming all the way to Phoenix. Thank you for coming, including Rabbi Ellis.